Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping right into week 4, Godly Roles and Relationships. Specifically, we're unpacking the ideas from chapter 3 of David Paulison's incredible work. The big goal here? We're trying to figure out how to inhabit our relational roles. As a parent, a spouse, a boss, or a counselor, not as power brokers trying to control everything, but actually as humble servants under Christ. It's a massive paradigm shift, and I'm super excited to dive into it with you. Here is our roadmap for today. We'll be looking at 1. The small sovereign trap, 2. Vertical before horizontal, 3. The 4 relational chairs, 4. The log in our eye, and finally, 5. Practicing relational humility. All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, the small sovereign trap, protecting our miniature kingdoms. So what exactly is a small sovereign? Well, it's that universal temptation we literally all face to use a relational role to act like a miniature king or queen. Instead of serving Christ, we end up just fiercely guarding our own little kingdoms. It's incredibly easy to slip into this, right? But think about it. Constantly protecting your own rights, your territory, your image, it's just frantic and exhausting. We really need to contrast that heavy burden with the calm, steady assurance that comes from simply being a servant. Serving Christ in your role, rather than ruling over your own tiny fiefdom, is actually what brings freedom. And that brings us to the core aim of this week, perfectly captured in this quote: to inhabit relational roles as servants under Christ, rather than small sovereigns over others. Because honestly, if we walk away from this explainer with just some new communication trick or counseling technique, but our fundamental way of seeing hasn't changed, we've missed the whole point. We might know the right words to say, but we totally miss the transformation that's supposed to happen in our hearts. Moving right along to Section 2. Vertical before horizontal, the true arena of conflict. If we're going to change our hearts, we have to change where we're looking. You see, the worldly view of roles is completely obsessed with rights, rank, and power. It's always asking, what am I owed? But the biblical view of roles flips that entirely. It centers on reverence for Christ, worship, and self-giving love. Relational breakdowns are almost never just a horizontal issue between two people. There is always a vertical reality dictating that tension. The real conflict is usually about who or what we are actually worshiping in that exact moment. This shift is mapped out brilliantly in the Ephesians 5:21 through 6:9 framework. Before the Apostle Paul gives a single piece of specific instruction to husbands, wives, parents, or workers, he sets the baseline for the whole shebang: submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. That is the lens. Roles aren't rights, they are arenas of worship. Every single relationship is a chance to display the self-giving love of Christ. When you actually grasp that, it completely shifts your internal question from what am I owed to whom am I serving? Which brings us to Section 3, the 4 relational chairs. Where do you sit? So how does this actually play out in real life? Think about the metaphorical relational chairs we sit in and how easily we use them as hiding spots. Even really good God-given roles can be twisted into tools for self-protection. Take the authority chair, for example. The huge temptation there is to use it just to avoid vulnerability. Or what about the helper chair? You might be counseling and serving nonstop, simply to avoid admitting that you need help yourself. Then there's the learner chair. That one's tricky. It can become a really clever way to hide from obedience by endlessly gathering information but never actually doing anything with it. And the wounded one chair. That can easily be misused to just entirely avoid taking responsibility. We really have to pay attention to how we're sitting in these chairs. Paulison gives us a really crucial pastoral caution here. Do not confuse having a role with inhabiting that role redemptively. Just because you are sitting in the counselor's chair or the parent's chair absolutely does not mean you are automatically worshiping God through that role. It is entirely possible to hold the right role with the completely wrong heart posture. That leads us right into Section 4, the log in our eye, the counselor first. To inhabit a role redemptively, we have to do some pretty hard inward looking. I want you to let this question really pierce you for a second. Which relational chair do I use to avoid dependence, confession, patience, or humble service? We can't just sit back and analyze everyone else's behavior. Ask yourself right now, what might you be using your current position to avoid? Are you staying crazy busy fixing others so you don't have to face your own struggles? Because here is the beautiful, yet kind of painful truth. The counselor kneels before interpreting another person. This is a motif we see throughout all of this material. Anyone trying to help someone else has to first kneel and be searched by the word themselves. You literally have to let the truth become personal before you try to apply it to the person sitting across from you. The Lord is incredibly kind to teach counselors by counseling them first. Finding the log in your own eye isn't something that disqualifies you from ministry. It's actually the very birthplace of true humility. And finally, Section 5, Practicing Relational Humility, Steps to Wise Care. Okay, let's translate all this deep theological stuff into actual boots-on-the-ground practice using the Wise Care framework. Now, keep in mind, this is a fluid, 5-step movement, definitely not a rigid mechanical formula. The steps are listen, clarify, interpret, speak, and practice. Did you notice where speak falls in that lineup? It's step 4. We are so often tempted to just jump right into speaking and giving advice way before we've actually listened to or clarified the situation. To actually move through those steps effectively, we need a few core skills: role discernment, power awareness, and relational humility. But maybe the most important one is attentive silence, specifically the practice of listening for 5 whole minutes before interpreting or jumping in to fix things. And hey, practicing attentive silence isn't about showing off your amazing counseling skills. It's a profound act of love. It actively protects us from that really subtle, selfish urge to take control of the conversation and assert our own small sovereignty. On a practical level, this is exactly where reflection journaling becomes so vital. You're invited to actively write down what the Lord has exposed, what He's invited you into, or what He's clarified about your own relational roles this week. The exercise directly asks you to identify that log in your own eye before you go trying to help someone else. This is where these concepts stop just floating in your head and actually drop down into your heart. So let me leave you with this final provocative thought. What would wise love do slowly rather than quickly? Before you rush out to apply some new theological concept to someone else's life or try to instantly fix a relationship by pulling rank, what would it look like for you to just slow down? What would it look like to let that truth become a lamp illuminating your own inner room first? Think on that as you head into your week. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer.